Welcome to Claim Your Confidence, a podcast that will introduce you to the most powerful people in the world. No matter what obstacles you face, Claim Your Confidence will inspire and motivate you to go after the life you want. Are you ready to claim your confidence?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Claim Your Confidence. I'm Lydia Fenet, and I am here in Newsstand Studios on a beautiful day in New York City. And I am so excited about my guest because she is a friend of mine. And I feel like after we finish this podcast, she will be a friend of yours. So first and foremost, thanks for listening. Happy to have you back. And second of all, I want to tell you a quick story before I introduce you to my next guest. But Dayssi Olarte de Kanavos had invited me to see the new Ritz NoMad in the middle of New York City. And Dayssi and I have been friends for a long time, but you know how you can have a friend and you don't really understand how unbelievable they are in the work environment, as well as being an incredible mom and philanthropist. And we went to the top of the hotel and we're standing at the top of the Ritz NoMad, which is in the middle of Manhattan. And you have Manhattan laid out at your feet and then uptown in the other direction. And I was like, I cannot believe that you are responsible for building this. So I am so excited to have you here, Dayssi. Dayssi is the co-founder, president, and COO of Flag Luxury Group, a privately held real estate development company with a focus on luxury hotels, condominiums, retail, and land-based entertainment. But she's so many more things. Dayssi, welcome to the show.
Very much. Thank you so much for having me. I love this little newsstand here. This is kind of amazing. And the bumper with your mom. I mean, that's just terrific. I love that.
It's a nice way to start. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. I know one of the greatest things about Newsstand Studios, and I talk a lot about how amazing this little studio is, but it has a glass front. And so we've had people walking by all day, and Daysi's been sort of waving at
people. It's very cute.
We had a woman come in and actually ask if she could sit in the chair and take a picture. So we're having our own Today Show moment here for sure. So Dayssi, let's start at the beginning of your life. If you don't know Dayssi and you've never met Dayssi, you wouldn't understand what an incredible force she is, even visually. She comes in with this gorgeous face and this hair, and she always looks so put together and so amazing. You grew up in Colombia, is that right?
Yes. I mean, I was born in Colombia, but shortly after I was born, actually, my mother moved us to New York City, and then my dad followed. So she kind of set us up originally on her own, and my dad and us followed about a year later. And her dream was, to make it in, the big world. And she thought she was going to start in New York, and she's still here.
I love it. So what was her reason for coming to New York?
Well, she was really unique in the world at the time, right? In the 1950s, women were not really going to college, let alone women all the way in Colombia going to college, even less. And she was one of 15 women graduating from the Women's College in Bogota, Colombia. Oh, and at the time, she was learning languages. So she spoke Russian, Italian, French, and, her dream was to become an executive secretary or translator to an international firm. And these were her career goals. And this is what was, unique at the time for women. So she came here at probably in 1963. And set up shop here, got herself a job as an executive secretary. Not at first. I think she was just a receptionist and then moved her way up. And then she started also giving tours and some tours of the UN, of the Empire State Building, and kind of just sort of living her dream, coming from this little town in Colombia, all of a sudden setting up shop and then convincing her husband to move here with his 3 girls.
Oh, my goodness. So how old were you when this was all happening?
I think I was only about a year old, I was about a year old, and my sisters had already been in an American school. So they spoke English. So I grew up speaking English as well because my sister spoke English. My mother obviously also spoke English. But at home, we only spoke Spanish. So for many years, I was a bit of an oddball as an adult because there was kitchen and food words. Yeah. I didn't know them in English because that was the language I spoke at home. I didn't know the names of pots and pans and regular stuff that you don't talk about with your friends.
Yeah.
And people used to make fun of me all the time for that.
So who were you as a child? You were one of 3 girls?
Yeah.
And were you?
I was the baby.
You were the baby.
I was the baby.
So what does that look like?
I was kind of like the substitute boy that everyone wanted in the
is that
family.
right?
Yeah. And I was also very rambunctious as a child. And later on in life, we found out that I had ADHD.
Oh, is that interesting?
So I was a real troublemaker as a child. I had a really hard time sitting in a seat, fidgeting, staying quiet in class. In the olden days, like we had the report cards. And I'll never forget, in grammar school, by then I was here in America, and the left side was behavior and the right side was the grades. And they started out the year, grading all these little things, whether I sat quiet, whether I, was patient or waited, all of these things. And then after a while, they just would put a big F.
Oh,
they were like, we just can't keep up. Like, it's just an F, and then I would get straight A's.
Interesting.
So then my mother would come to the meetings and she would leave in tears because they said, listen, we really don't know what to do with her.
Yeah.
We don't know if we should just kick her out of school or if we should promote her to the next grade. Like, we're just unsure, She doesn't have the capabilities to behave herself at all. We have no idea what to do with her. So my poor mother had to manage all of that for so many years, having, this very mischievous child.
Did you care, or were you just kind of on your own path doing your own thing?
A lot of me, I was just oblivious, right? Like, I just sort of didn't understand what was the big deal, right? To be so curious, right? That was really my thing, was that I was kind of like Dennis the Menace.
Yeah.
So a good-natured person, but part of me was oblivious, but I would say the label of, being the troublemaker. And, it definitely made me feel bad that I had that label, because I didn't feel like I was a bad person, but I was sort of the bad child, that everyone was like, oh my God, you're always embarrassing us. My sisters were horrified by me all the time. And I mean, I couldn't be left alone for 5 minutes without something happening, around the house. Because there's also a point where you can't help yourself. Part of ADHD is that you don't have those self-control, and you don't have that patience, and you don't really understand limitations and things. So it's very difficult to navigate as a young child. I mean, I got kicked out of ballet.
Oh yeah.
I got kicked out of brownies.
Oh.
In my mother's mind, she had these 3 girls, and my 2 older sisters were graceful. They danced, they sang, they did all these things. I could never keep a tune. The one thing I would say, the activity that finally opened up, I think the first glimpse in my mind of what I was really capable of, was playing basketball.
Interesting.
Was at 9 years old learning to play basketball and excelling at basketball, and realizing that playing the sport also made me feel better, and later, 20 years later, I connected the fact that if you have ADHD, doing, some sort of exercise is so great for you, and doing exercise every day, and it helps calm you down. And so I really just got into sports, and getting into sports kind of changed my trajectory, I think.
That's amazing.
Because before that, I was just like this odd, geeky child, right? Getting straight A's on the one hand, getting in trouble all the time on the other hand, but not really excelling in something else other than, school, right? So the after-school activities, you kind of feel bad about yourself. And so that definitely takes a hit to your self-esteem. And we moved back to Colombia when I was 9 years old. And that's where I learned to play basketball, volleyball, and track and field.
That became a path for you.
Changed my life. Changed my life, sports. And basketball's a great sport for someone with ADHD, because there's so much going on the court, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't have to just focus on the one thing.
So you moved back to Colombia when you were 9.
We did, yeah. And my parents, they were really interested in us becoming Colombian, because they felt that we were becoming kind of too American, and going to Colombia once a year, we were not properly connected with who we were. And they were 100% right, because I always feel like I became Colombian during those middle school years that I lived in Colombia. I mean, people are so proud of being Colombian in Colombia.
Yeah.
And that pride really goes a long way, and it's really nice to be proud of where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a beautiful country. I've only been once, but it's such a beautiful country.
Yeah, the people are amazing in Colombia. And that's really, for me, the magic of Colombia. It's the people.
So you left Columbia to come back to college in the U.S.?
We returned with my mom. My parents divorced, and we returned to America while I think I was going into the 9th grade. So I started 9th grade here in New York City in Forest Hills High School.
Oh my gosh.
So I went to a public school in Queens. A lot of people don't know that. And pursued playing sports there too, which I was told, even though I excelled in Columbia and I was first string and a top player in basketball and volleyball and became really good at those sports, which built up my self-esteem, I was told that I would never make it because the girls were going to be too good and, it was going to be really hard and I wasn't going to fit in. So I tried out anyway. I missed the first year tryout, so I had to wait till 10th grade. I didn't really play with the team or practice, but I practiced on my own, and I was just sure I was going to make it, and I did. To know that, you can be an outsider, people can call you names, and, it's hurtful in the beginning, but then you come out the other side.
Yeah.
And then that can happen again, and it's fine. There's always the other, you come out the other side. Some people are just mean.
But it probably, I would think, too, just in terms of your own confidence. I mean, moving back and forth between Columbia and America, you're making different friends. You're moving at those ages that are difficult.
So hard.
Moving from middle school and high school, but then again, having that one unifying thing that you love to do and that immediately plugs you into a team of people is also such a great way to be moving back and forth through those years, I should think.
Absolutely. It was a great thread for me. It really changed my life. And it's still today, exercise is such an important part of my life too.
Yeah.
I have to exercise. My brain functions so much better with it.
Yeah.
Now that we know what we know with ADHD, it's even more important, right, to pay attention to that. And we discovered that I had ADHD when my son was, little and kind of getting in trouble in school. And I was very patient with him because I thought, well, I used to do that. But eventually, though, he started hitting, the wall, when he got a little older, and he was diagnosed with ADHD. And I'll never forget, we didn't just go to a doctor and give symptoms, right? He actually did 3 days of testing.
Yeah.
He had a cardiologist test him. And after all those rounds of tests and then meeting with the psychiatrist several times, we were at Child Mind Institute.
Yeah.
He looked over at me and he said, I feel like I want to test your wife too.
Oh, Harold said that?
We look at it as a superpower now,
Yeah,
Now that we
absolutely.
understand what it is.
And the learning differences. Yeah. And I love that you talk about it so openly because I know that there's so many people out there thinking to themselves like, oh, actually, maybe, and that's what it's so important to have these conversations because you don't know, you'd have no idea or no thought process about it. So it's really amazing to hear you talk about it. And I'm glad to hear that things are on the up and up and in every direction because of that.
Yeah.
So where did you end up in college?
So I ended up going to Cornell. I went to the Cornell Hotel School.
Oh,
and
how interesting. Look at that.
Of course. It's an undergraduate business school too. So I knew that even if I didn't go into the hotel world, I would have a business degree. So I was attracted to hospitality because my sister was also in hospitality. And she chose to go to FIU, but it was like 1 and 2, Cornell and FIU at the time. And I just thought it would be an interesting business. I loved hospitality. It seemed kind of sexy and fun and the people business and not to have to sit behind a desk. And, I had all these ideas of what it would be like to be working in a hotel.
Yeah.
And then by my freshman year, I found out that I would never want to work in a hotel.
Oh, is that right? Why?
The job of hospitality, as sexy as it sounds, it requires so much attention to detail, and the rigidity of the corporate structure felt very oppressive to me. Just even in my internships, like that freshman summer, and it was something that I just really felt not enough creativity for what I liked. I have a lot more of a creative outlet that I needed. And so I went back my sophomore year thinking, okay, now what do? I just have to focus on business or whatever this is. And we had this great lecture called the Distinguished Lecture Series at Cornell. And if you went every day to that lecture, you got an A in the course. So everyone, of course, went. And we had alumni that would tell us about what they did. So we had a real estate developer that showed us, like an empty piece of land and what he thought of and how he imagined his hotel and how he decided to build it And even though he had a big company run it and manage it, he's the one that decided who the architect was, who the interior designer was, what the guest flow. And he talked about the teams and the creativity behind the whole thing. And that's when it just clicked. And I thought, I got it. That was the light bulb. I'm going to be a real estate developer.
That's amazing.
And develop hotels.
Sophomore year in college.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just because of this lecture. I'll never forget it. I sat there thinking, this is my dream come true. Because my favorite pastime as a child was to build things with Legos.
Yeah.
And I loved manipulating and building, and I was good with physical space.
So then sophomore year, you decide this, but then what do you do to actually make this happen?
Well, the great thing is that Cornell it's an undergraduate business program too. So what it does is that all your classes, whether it's finance or accounting or law, it's still the same courses, but you have the examples are in hospitality. So it's translatable to anything. But I think, getting my master's was really where I learned the business of development.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And I did that here at NYU.
That's amazing. It must be cool to do it in New York because, I mean, everywhere you look, there's somebody else's idea.
And the giants of real estate in New York. I mean, all of these names, Stern and Lefrak and, Tish. And, they were like my heroes.
That's amazing. So what was your first job?
So I turned down my jobs at hotels because I needed to get into real estate, right?
You're like, this is not what I'm doing.
So my mother was horrified. Yeah. I felt so bad for her. She just was like, you went to Cornell and now you're taking a part-time job as a waitress to pay your bills because you haven't found your real estate job? Are you serious? She's like, are you serious? Like, did we do this for nothing? And I'm like, Mom, you just have to trust me. I have to do it my way. I will find a job. And it was the days where we still had to look in the newspaper, right? It wasn't online or anything. And I finally convinced a real estate broker that did commercial leasing to let me become a broker with his company. And there weren't that many women in commercial leasing. There were a few and some really successful ones. But not that many. It was hard to get in. And definitely it was very hard to try to work for a developer because most of those were just family businesses. Like they weren't really hiring outside and certainly not out of college. So I was a leasing broker and an analyst. And my job was to walk around buildings like these and get inside all the offices and try to talk to the powers that be and try to figure out how I could sell them my services and rent them a new space somewhere else or get them more space and sublease this. And, this is how you have to get your leads. They assign you buildings. And they're like, now you have to figure out the building roster. We have an old one, but it's probably not good. So you have to fill it out. Like, tell us who's on every floor and try to get in, And so you try any story and you try to, smooth over the receptionist and, and depending on how gullible and sweet they are, they let you in. And half the time, more than half the time, I would say 90% of the time, they just slammed the door in my face.
Oh my God.
But what was great about that is that you learn that no, it doesn't really hurt anymore.
Yeah.
Like people say no to you enough and you become immune to what even that means.
Yeah.
And being able to just go up to anybody and ask them whatever you want and knowing that the worst thing that will ever happen is that they will say no is so freeing.
Yeah, it is so freeing. I had a woman at my first book signing ever for The Most Powerful Woman in the Room Is You. We were talking about failure. We were talking about being rejected. And she said, I don't have a question, but I just want to say that I worked at a conference center, a call conference center, and I was rejected over 10,000 times. So I like to say that my superpower is that I'm now made of Teflon.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, wow, that is such a superpower. I mean, think about that. You walk in and you don't care what the answer is.
Yeah, you become immune to it, which is kind of amazing. And, you really have to persevere and you really have to, you have to have a minimum number of calls a week and, things like that. So learning how to sell is so important as part of your job. So, and persevering and getting the appointment and learning how to close and all of these are abilities that you'll always use your entire life. So I always felt that those years being a leasing broker were, an incredible jumpstart to learning the world here in New York real estate.
When did you start to really get your feet wet? I mean, you're an analyst, you're walking in there, you're filling out the logs as to who's living in a building. But when did you really start to get to the meat of the job that you have now?
After a couple of years being a leasing broker, I applied to NYU's first year of the Master's in Development program, right? So I was in that first cohort, and I did it part-time while I worked. And I would say, learning from, our professors were not regular professors. They were associate professors, people that had regular real jobs in the real world and were doing real work and volunteering, I guess, to teach us, right, at night. And I would say sinking my teeth into that course load and understanding how I would get to A to Z, like just learning that and being able to sit in a class and at a point where I was really ready to absorb it. I wasn't taking my education for granted.
Yeah.
I listened to every word. I did every assignment. I was just so excited about it. I think that was really, what really helped propel me. And when I graduated from that program, I ended up not graduating straight off because I took a chunk of time off, but for personal reasons. But I met my husband right before, sort of in that in-between time, and I had one more class that I needed to finish. And I started interviewing with developers. And Paul and I had met. He had asked me to marry him, like on the third date.
Oh my gosh.
He's amazing.
Third date.
On our third date, but it was a good date. It was a long, obviously. We went away to Sardinia.
Oh my!
And we went away as friends. We went apparently as friends.
Oh, yep. Okay.
And we left vowing to marry each other. So it was kind of an incredible whirlwind trip. My mother was so worried that I hadn't called her the entire time. She's like, "What's happening?" And I said, "Mom,
you don't want to know, Mom.
I'm on a honeymoon with a stranger."
Oh my God.
And it was a honeymoon with a stranger, I swear.
That's
It was amazing. Yeah. We
Oh
never stopped talking. We stayed up every night. We never slept.
Oh my
I mean, we
God.
would take naps on the beach, but just, that connection and just the ability to realize this is my person.
Yeah.
Like we have found each other and this is it. It was amazing.
When did you decide to start working together? Like, how did that evolve?
Well, Paul and his family had been in real estate development for a long time. And actually his dad built the first Marriott and Holiday Inns in the country. And even like Bill Marriott was the general manager of their Boston Marriott hotel. So like, they had a long history. They also built hotels in Europe, in Nigeria, in Belgium, in Beirut, so in Greece. Yeah. But through various reasons and everything, that they lost those properties. They had, in real estate, you get your ups and downs.
Yeah.
And then they regrouped and started working in Florida. So they started Florida Acquisition Group. There, they started building retirement community homes and golf courses and things like that. So after Paul's father died, him and his brothers kind of wanted to the only one that wanted to stay in real estate was Paul. And the other two brothers had other plans. So they were kind of like forced into that family business. So Paul didn't want me to take a job with another developer. He said, "You can learn from me and we can be partners."
Great.
And I said, "Well, you don't ever want to build any hotels again, is what you told me.
Oh,
and I only want to build hotels." So we were at an impasse. I said, "I can't be your partner. I'm still going to interview, but, we're partners for life, so that's good enough." And he traveled a lot, and he said, "Well, I don't think so." He said, "I think I'd rather just be partners with you now, and we're going to find those hotels."
Oh, my gosh.
And we did. And that's when we got the Ritz-Carlton agreement, where they were looking for a strategic developer to bring Ritz-Carltons to South Florida.
Wow. The other thing that so few people who don't know you as well are listening to this conversation about how you are a titan of real estate would know is I met Dayssi probably over 20 years ago when she was starting the Friends of New Yorkers for Children, which is essentially a way to spotlight the issues that we have with foster care in New York City. And when I tell you, I will never forget coming into your apartment with Lauren Short from Christie's, and she was like, oh, there's this amazing woman named Daisy, and she's starting this organization, and they're looking for sort of young New York women to come and really work. And I mean, I have always been a workhorse. Lauren's the same way. And she was like, do you want to come? We were both in events at the time. And I said, yes. And we went in, and you were so glamorous. I mean, my God, you're not looking at Daisy like I am, but there's the hair and the big eyes and just this beautiful soul, but also just such a beautiful woman. And I remember walking in and just being like, oh my gosh, wow. And you had just put together this powerhouse group that over the next 15 years, really, I mean, New Yorkers for Children did incredible work. I mean, going to the intake centers where the children would go after they left their foster home or left their homes to go into foster care, which used to be sort of almost hospital-like. And you, with this vision, turn them into these incredible, beautiful, comfortable places for them to go. I mean, it was really amazing to watch as a friend of yours, but also from the beginning to watch you grow that organization.
Well, we had such great volunteers and, you and all, my good friends that joined me, and then the ones that I got to know, because that's really how I got to know you, were so incredible, right? That's part of teamwork, and you can only do that if you have a team. If you have, people doing it together with you, you can't really do anything like that by yourself. And it was such a rewarding time, and I loved all of our volunteer activities. That was really my favorite. And I would say the only thing that I really miss from those days is that camaraderie, doing something that you really care about, volunteering with kids, making a difference, and doing that with people that some of them were my dear friends, some of them became my dear friends, and how great that was to do that in community. I miss that a little bit.
I know. I think we all miss that. It was such an amazing
magical time.
And meeting all those incredible kids. I feel like we would always have a foster child who would come and talk about their experience or talk about something that they'd learned. And I'll never forget, there was one kid who came in and he was like, I did this job one summer, and so I thought because I'd done that job, that was the only job I could do. And so when anyone asked me, I told them that this is the job I would do. But then the next summer, I had an internship here, and I realized that actually I could do any job. And you just realize the exposure that you were providing as a result of that incredible organization changed the lives of so many people. So I know if anyone who is listening to this knows about New Yorkers for Children, a lot of that has to do with Daisy and really getting it on the map. So
you're too nice. I mean, Nick Scopetta is my hero, and he's the one that started it. And I'm forever grateful for his support. He was incredible. He was always so supportive of me, of my ideas, and I miss him. He passed away, but we always think about him.
So you have the Ritz NoMad in New York City. Tell me two things. What does it take to get a hotel built in New York City? And give me like the worst day of your life during COVID when all of that was going down.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can
confidence breakers.
Remember that one. But so we started this hotel. We bought the land 10 years ago. Okay. So that's what it took 8 years to build it. Right. So a couple of years to buy the land, figure out the project, design it. And I got to choose the architect, and I was looking at a lot of great architects, and I did a contest between the architects. So I paid them to show me how they would envision my property. And it was a really tricky property because it wasn't on a big land lot. It wasn't like I could do a million different things. It's kind of small, very tight. But I had an ambitious program with a certain number of rooms that I needed to fulfill for my financing and whatnot, right? So you always have to look at your ROI. And then we settled on Raphael Vignoli, and that was the honor of my life to work with a genius like him in the creative world. And we sat across the street in the NoMad library, that beautiful library that's still there. And he would take out his sketch pad, do drawings, go on his laptop computer, do a 3D model on Rhino. And we would just sit there for hours and work on different ways of looking at the building, all of the pieces. And what's incredible when you work with, somebody like him is that normally these types of architects, they're more about what does the building look like on the outside. And that's their whole thing. And one of the things that was really important to me was this site is so small. I need to take advantage of every square foot. So I have to build it from the inside out. So when we lock in our floor plans, you can figure out what it's going to look like on the outside, but not until then.
Yeah.
And they usually do the other way around.
So interesting.
But then it leads to lost space and, all of these
Cutting up
lost
the corners
opportunities.
to
and,
make it look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. And I didn't have that luxury. I really had to be very strict and very rigid, and I had to fight for every usable square foot. Yet he still managed to work with me. We were a great partnership, and I love that. And it just requires a massive team, right? But we start with our architect, and then we layer in everyone else afterwards, the interior designers. What I made very tricky in terms of building something in construction was to choose several designers instead of just one. So I have a different designer for every food and beverage outlet. So that's 3 different designers. So David Rockwell for the Zaytinya.
Zaytinya is the best breakfast spot in Manhattan. I will eat the yogurt there for the rest of my life, by the way, just so you know.
Isn't it good?
It is so good. It's like I finish it and I wish there were more, even though I know that's not a good idea. And then I only want to go back every day ever since.
Well, my vision is that it's going to be the breakfast power spot of NoMad. So we're picking up every day more and more customers for breakfast. And when they find out that it's open, I think we will get there. So I'm so happy you love it.
Run, don't walk.
I'm happy you love it. And then we have the Bazaar restaurant that is designed by Lázaro Rosaviolan, who's amazing. He's from Spain, and he was able to translate the Bazaar concept into this really fun, a live space that gets you excited and, just really prepares you for the meal that you're going to have next. And we didn't say this before, but I partnered with Chef Jose Andres.
Yes. Oh, you were talking about it before.
So he's doing all of my food and beverage in the hotel. So if you stay there, you get room service by Chef Jose Andres. If you live there in the residences, you get room service by Chef Jose Andres. And all the banquets, all the special events are Chef Jose Andres food. And then the 3 restaurants, the Zaytinya by Rockwell, the Bazaar by Lázaro Violan, and then the rooftop, which is, my pièce de résistance that I love.
So beautiful.
Nubelouse by Jose Andres, which is an amazing, beautiful bar with an extraordinary view of New York City.
It is.
500 feet up in the sky.
It is, honestly, if you are not from New York City, or even if you live in the city, do not miss the view, because it's smack in the middle of Manhattan in many ways, because you're below Central Park. So you're getting that sort of 30 blocks south, and then, basically up to Central Park, and then just the park. It's really extraordinary
to see. The
view
downtown is beautiful.
The view downtown is beautiful.
The Freedom Tower, and you can see the Statue of Liberty. And for this venue, we chose Martin Bruninsky. And I really wanted to have this contemporary, glamorous spot that wasn't overdone, but luxurious and sexy and inviting, but that would feel timeless. And so he made my dream come true up there. And it's a jewel in the sky. The bar glows. The onyx on the sides glow. He has this beautiful, upholstered walls everywhere, and velvet, and it's just sexy and fun, and it's a unique experience.
It is. It absolutely is. And it feels very New York. You go up there and you feel like you are at the top of the world, which is why a lot of people come here. And even those of us who live here love to feel that about being in this city. And I love NoMad. It's such an exciting place to be. There's so much going on there. So definitely stop by the next time you are in New York. It is a not to be missed place. Well, Dayssi, thank you so much for spending all of this time with me. Can you tell us where we can find you, where we can follow along?
Oh, okay. Yes. So I am on Instagram, daisy.ok, and on LinkedIn, pretty much, and daisy.ok on Twitter, although I mostly read my Twitter feed. I don't post that much. But I enjoy being able to, curate my feed, which is interesting these days.
I know. Definitely. So what's next for you?
So what's next? I am taking a historic property, the Sagamore Hotel in Miami Beach.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. We got that during COVID, and we partnered with the family that owned it. And we are going to convert 110 rooms in that hotel to 55. And we're going to annex it to the Ritz-Carlton South Beach.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's an exciting project that I'm in the middle of. And we're also building residences on that site.
Amazing.
So I have beautiful Ritz-Carlton whole ownership residences that are like they're like beach houses in the sky, and they're very glamorous and a lot of light and air and beautiful views to the ocean, sunset views, and just an incredible, place to call home. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, Daisy, what a dream job you have. Well, I know we are all going to be following along. I hope you're posting all of this on Instagram so we can watch as you create these beach houses and all this amazing property in Florida, but also continue to do such an amazing job in New York as well. It has been such a pleasure to have you on here. I feel like time has passed so quickly, and I've loved hearing your story.
I feel so honored. Oh my God, I have Lydia Fenet interviewing me here in the famous newsstand. It's Newsstand Studio, which is so cute and so adorable. And I am very honored to be here.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for your time. And thank you to Joe for always keeping us in line and making sure that everything's perfect. Thank you to Tishman Speyer and Rockefeller Center for this beautiful studio. I'm Lydia Fenet. This is Claim Your Confidence. Follow us on Instagram and tune in again next week. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. Have a great week.